Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I'm super excited for today's video because I thought I would match like very niche and specific interests with books, and this is specifically for people who either aren't avid readers who want to get into reading, or simply like if you're a reader but you're not in the world of like authors and literature and books and you just don't know what to read next, this video is for you. When I recommend books in general, like when I really like a book, I obviously want everyone to read it, but I know and I expect people to have different reactions. Not everyone's gonna like the same things. But when someone specifically asks me for a recommendation, they tell me what they usually like, I can literally read you and give you the perfect book for you, and it's gonna be a book that you won't be able to put down. So I thought, to get you to find your next favorite read, I will match the things you already love with a book that has the same vibes, or maybe the same trope, or maybe the same setting. They're literally connected in some way, and I just think you're gonna like these books based on what you already like. So without further ado, let's get started because I have a list and I could literally make like 5 parts of this video. The first book recommendation is for my Swiftie girls, but specifically for the girls whose favorite album is Folklore, but specifically for the girls whose favorite songs inside Folklore are This Is Me Trying, Mirable, My Tears Ricochet, Exile. Like, we all love Folklore. I love me some Folklore. Folklore is my favorite album. And I do love the love triangle inside Folklore. But the songs I relate to the most are Mirable, This Is Me Trying, etc, etc, etc. This is an album that I think portrays self-sabotage very well. I don't want to rant about Taylor Swift and Folklore in this entire video, but this is my recommendation for you. If you relate very deeply with those songs, you will most definitely like Normal People by Sally Rooney. One of the main characters in this book is Marianne. She is the queen of self-sabotage, but it comes from a place of trauma. You know the trauma, you learn to love her. It's a bit frustrating at times. She was also ahead of the curve, and then the curve became a sphere for her too. She's struggling in her transition from like teenager to adult, and adulthood is really where she can see her coping mechanisms to her trauma and how her trauma materializes into like real life and her relationships and just the men she chooses to associate with. Trust me, if you like those songs, if you relate in any way to any of the songs I mentioned, you will love this book. So this one's kind of obvious in the sense that like the author, when she wrote this book, she took inspiration from what I'm gonna mention. All the time while watching this movie, all I could think about was this book. I was like, this is literally the same exact vibes as this book. The movie I'm talking about is Almost Famous. It's a 2000s movie, I believe, and obviously the book I'm talking about is Daisy Jones and the Six. This book was actually inspired by Fleetwood Mac, and if you like this album and Fleetwood Mac in general, this is the book for you. Daisy Jones and the Six is just a book about a band called The Six and how Daisy Jones, who's a singer, joins them, and just like their story, but just the way that it's written, I personally really enjoyed. The author wrote it in an interview format type of way. It just gives off like reality TV vibes, like very organic, like very gossipy, like super drama heavy. As a reader, you can see and you can tell how the different perspectives of the characters differ, and like their perceptions of reality also differ. So in a way, it's also up to you as a reader to decide which version you choose to go with and you choose to believe. But I just thought it was such an awesome story. It's so real. Each of the characters is so different. It's just a great book. It touches on very heavy subjects in life as well, so I feel like it's also a thought-provoking book, but you'll also have a great time. You'll fall in love with the characters. You'll want to know what happens. You won't be able to put it down. If you like Fleetwood Mac and this movie, you'll fall in love with this book for sure. So some of these recommendations, I'm gonna be super honest, some are very like science backed. For some of these, I brought very clear explanations as to how I believe they correlate. But for some of these, it's just vibes, and you're just gonna have to trust me. Like literally, some of these connections are just like, they just give off the same vibe. If you loved one vibe, you're gonna love the other, and that's just like how it's gonna work in this video. If you were obsessed with the Vampire Diaries growing up, if you were like me, and every single Tuesday, was it Tuesday or Thursday? Pretty Little Liars was one of those days, and then the Vampire Diaries was the other. If you're one of the girls who like waited for the next episode every single week to watch the Vampire Diaries, and if the Vampire Diaries is your comfort show and you don't know how to get into reading or you don't know what to read next, this is a super easy fantasy, and it's super easy to get into. It's super easy to get hooked on it, and it gives off the Vampire Diaries vibes. And no, they're not vampires, okay? This book is Powerless. I've already talked about it so much on my channel, so I'm not gonna go into it as much. So basically the main two characters are Pei and Kai, and they just give off Damon and Elena vibes, and that's just like how it is. And if you love that type of like romance trope, you're gonna love this book. There's also a brother involved, so just like the love triangle in the Vampire Diaries, it's not as heavy in here, but like you do get a glimpse of that. I think you're gonna love this book if you are a Vampire Diaries girly. This next one is really niche because it's a very specific trope and feeling. But if you loved the game plan growing up and like that type of trope where there's like this grumpy old, like either old guy or like a man, he lives alone, he doesn't like anyone disturbing him, he's either always for some reason grieving, or he just has a very set structure and routine and he just doesn't like to be disturbed. And then a little girl or a woman or a love like comes into his life and then just flips it around, and then he becomes like this golden retriever person. If you like that trope, which also reminds me of this movie, which is also a book that I haven't read, you're gonna love this book. This is the storied life of AJ Thickery. I love this book. It's so cute. The main characters are book lovers as well, which is also super nice as a book lover to read about book lovers. It is also set primarily in a bookstore, which is also super cute. This book also feels like a warm hug, and I don't know how to explain that, but it just does. It's very cozy. It's very grumpy to golden retriever type of trope, and I'm here for it. This next niche interest type vibe is this movie. And listen, I know this movie has a book. Like, I know this is a book originally, and then it was adapted to a screenplay. But I do think if you're not like in the book world, you might have missed that it was a book, but you probably watched the movie. And if you like that type of trope where like the love interest or the main characters are like best friends for life, they know they have feelings for the other person, but they don't know how the other person's gonna react, and they're both feeling the same way at the same time. That type of trope, I literally to this day don't know if I hate it or love it. Like, it frustrates me so much, but I also really enjoy reading about it and also watching it. So if you like that type of trope, you're definitely going to like If He Had Been With Me. And let me throw in this book too, because it's also very heavy on that trope, but this is about this one. The main characters are best friends. Like I said, like they have feelings for each other, they realize it too late. It's very well written in my opinion. The main characters are in high school, so that's also very refreshing to read. This is a YA book as well, so it's just very cute. Every single person I've seen give a review on this book has cried and has felt like super emotional by the end of this book. It didn't do that to me, but I still enjoyed the story. It was still very entertaining. It's well written. If you like that type of trope, You're gonna love this book. So this trope is also very, very niche, but I really like it. But it's really hard to put into words for some reason. It's like hard to come by in movies or books, I think. I hope I don't come across as an idiot, and there's probably like so many examples of this trope and I just like can't think about them. But the trope I'm talking about is someone with low IQ going into high IQ, and you getting as a viewer to see how life changes through their eyes as their IQ and like consciousness grows. How they start like seeing all the injustices and like how they process them and just the conclusions they get to. It just scratches an itch for me. If you really enjoy this trope too, if you like this movie a lot, you'll definitely like Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This book I feel like is considered a classic, I think. In brief, this book, like the actual story, is composed of journal entries that the main character makes. There's a clinical trial going on where they want to test a drug that allegedly helps people grow their IQs. So they first test it on a mouse. The mouse starts growing its IQ. So when they see that the mouse is doing really well and responding well to the drug, they then go to our main character and give the drug to him. So he's part of a clinical trial. Since his IQ starts off really low, you literally get to see that trope I mentioned where like he starts seeing things very differently. And since we all know ignorance is bliss, mental illnesses start to hit and life is just hard, but it's harder if you're smart. And he also develops kind of a friendship with the mouse, which by the way, Algernon is the name of the mouse. It's just a very cute story, and it's very niche, and it's very much that trope that I just described. So if you like this movie, you're definitely gonna like Flowers for Algernon. This one specifically is one of those that I told you had to trust me because it just like matches the vibes, but it's not that obvious. But The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, if you're not in the books world, I guess it's not obvious for you, but this is a classic. It's a very known classic. In this book, you kinda follow the main character. Holden, I think was his name. I read this so long ago. He is, if I remember correctly, in high school. And then I think you follow him into college. The way it's written is just basically you following a character for a very long time and seeing their character development. And it's just a character that has a lot of trauma. You watch them navigate through that trauma. Literally, don't ask me why, but it just reminds me so much of BoJack Horseman. You think it's a cartoon, but then it gets so incredibly deep. And that's just what happened with this book. I actually want to reread this book because I feel like now I would appreciate it much more than back then. If you like BoJack Horseman, if you enjoy the storyline, the writing, like how deep it gets, how you can literally like get to see like his thought process, his trauma, his coping mechanisms, literally just him like going through life and like having a hard time and trying to figure life out. This is one of those situations where you're just gonna have to trust me. And if you like BoJack, you're probably gonna like this book. If you're like me and you love watching true crime, then this is the book for you. Anything kind of dark and gory, I'm here for. Like just those like creepy vibes. I literally don't know why I like it, but it just entertains me. Aura by Carlos Fuentes. And the best thing about this book is that you can literally read it in like 2 hours. The book is 145 pages, but look at how the font is printed. So it's a really, really short novel. And it's just a good like transition book if you want to get into reading, if you like those creepy kind of vibes. You're gonna guaranteed enjoy this book. This is another one of those situations where you're just gonna have to trust me. But if you like Illicit Affairs by Taylor Swift, the song, this book literally gives off those same exact vibes. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid is a really, really fun read. It's a fun time. She's an incredible writer. She's the same writer who wrote Daisy Jones and the Six. This is a 5-star read for me. This is like a 4.5. This is the story of Evelyn Hugo, a very famous actress in the 70s, I think, and just how she is like super famous as an actress, and just because she's super beautiful, but she's also famous for the fact that she's had 7 husbands, and they just explain how that came to be, and it has some plot twists at the end. I feel like it's just like filled with illicit affairs vibes. I don't know what else to tell you. This one, I feel like it's very like straightforward, in your face relation between these things, but they're so different. If you like movies, books, documentaries, any type of content on World War II, and that's just something you're interested in learning about, you've probably watched Jojo Rabbit, and you've also probably watched Inglourious Basterds, and you'll probably like this book. Now, these 2 movies are very different in style, in storytelling, in writing, and just like humor. But if you've just been drawn to either of these movies and you've enjoyed them, you're probably gonna like The Book Thief. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I think it's in my top 3. No, it most definitely is in my top 3. I've read it twice, and I'll probably read it again many times before I die. It's a story that's set in World War II. What I find really interesting about the story, which kind of made me match it or relate it to Jojo Rabbit or Inglourious Basterds, is that it has a very creative storytelling and narrative. It's just very creative and it's very unique. It stands out to me. So the narrator in the story is Death. Death isn't portrayed as it usually is in the media. It's portrayed as a character that is very tired, that does not enjoy taking lives. And it's definitely tired because it's World War II, so she's had a lot on her plate. Besides the setting, that's what kind of made me match these 3 things together, just because the narrative and storytelling is so creative. Like, they're all so different in their own ways, but they're all set in World War II. If you're an avid reader, because I'm not gonna recommend this to someone who's just like trying to get into reading. If you're already an avid reader and you've seen Kill Bill by Tarantino and you enjoy the movie and the plot and just like the empowered female main character who is super strong and just like super resilient, goes through a lot of trauma, like that type of vibe, you're gonna love this series, Throne of Glass. Why did I do that? I literally have it right here. This series by Sarah J. Maas, this is the epitome of a strong female character. She might kill some people along the way who really deserve it a lot. If you like Kill Bill and that type of vibe, you'll probably like this series. If Grey's Anatomy is like your comfort show, if you love that type of like drama, like interconnected drama, like they're all friends, if you love how the TV show not only focuses on Meredith but also focuses on all the other characters, and if you also love the fact that you get to know the characters and see them grow in different seasons, and they kind of each get their little like spotlight, and where you kind of get to know their stories and their relationships, and there's so many couples, and it's just like very interconnected, like very found family type of vibes, you will love the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. It's not set in a hospital, but it's very much like found family, interconnected standalones. You fall in love with the characters, but you also get to see them throughout the books. Each couple gets their own book. The romance is so good. I just love these characters so much. The men in this series, the men they are. So yeah, that was it for today's video. I had a lot of fun like trying to come up with these. If you have any like requests on specific niche interests that you have and you want me to recommend a book to you, drop them down below. I'll definitely have a book recommendation and I can guarantee you're gonna like it. So I hope you enjoyed today's video and I hope I see you on my next video. And I really hope I convinced you to read at least one book. So I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!